There we go. Okay. So, welcome to Lifespan Development. And I do like to know a couple of things right off the bat before I jump headlong into what we're going to talk about today. Do you have anyone here that this is their very first class at Emerton? I'm just curious.
Yes, Leanne
Yes.
Taylor here. First class.
Leanne,
Yes, sir.
welcome.
Well,
Yes.
thank you.
This is going to be the hardest class you've ever taken in your whole life.
I was convinced of that. Yep.
No, I'm just kidding.
No, I'm actually a little bit more worried about research theory, but that's okay. We're gonna get through that one too.
Who's teaching that?
Schultz, Dr. Schultz.
Oh my God, he's great. You're gonna love him.
Oh, great. Thank you. Vote of confidence. Yes,
Oh, yeah.
need that.
Dr. Schultz is probably right now getting another doctorate somewhere. He's got like 20,000 degrees.
Yeah, I
He's-
noticed that on his bio.
Mhm.
You just have to keep reading. Mhm.
Yeah, he's a good. You'll like his class. That's good.
Thanks. I'm
Awesome.
excited.
Have any other first-time Amberton students?
Yes, Raina.
Raina, welcome.
Thank you. I'm excited.
Yeah, are you nervous?
I'm so nervous.
Ah.
I haven't been to school in 6 years, so
Okay.
I'm trying to get back in the groove of things.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
this is a good class to start with. Are you taking any other classes?
Yes, I am. Lifespan and multicultural counseling.
Oh yeah, with
Pamela
Dr.
Johnson?
Oh,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes, sir. Mhm.
Good class. It'll be a tough class, but it's a good class.
Oh my. Now I'm really nervous.
Yeah. Hey, you know what? Here's the thing about nerves. Nerves we need. It gets us ready for what's coming up.
Yeah, I tell my clients that as well. I'm a LCDC counselor intern, so I always tell my clients it's good to be nervous, but now I'm in a seat where I'm nervous and I'm like, oh my God, I don't know what I'm gonna do.
It's easier when someone else is nervous.
Right now that the table is turned on me, I was like, give me a break. I can't do it right now.
Yeah, awesome.
Oh yeah.
So just a couple of things. And if you've never had a couple of things. Number one, if you've never had a class that's on Zoom, like we've never done anything virtual, there's a couple of etiquette things, and this is for everybody. The first thing is I typically mute everyone. So if you do talk, just make sure you unmute yourself. The second thing is you can show your video if you want. Sometimes I might want you to just because I like to see everyone. But I get it if some people don't want to do that. There's actually been a little bit of research done on Zoom fatigue, and if you're on a call, well, they call them calls, even though it's video. It's actually okay to take yourself off video. It makes you feel less like someone's watching you all the time. So I'm cool with that. I would ask though, if you talk, just make sure you unmute yourself. And I love seeing everyone, but typically what happens is it's kind of like what we have right now. I'm basically looking at names and no video, which is cool. But when we get into groups, which we're going to do here a little bit, everyone usually pops their video on for the group, which I would encourage that mostly. I think that can be really, really helpful. So, and I typically will record all of our Zoom classes so that you can see them later. I'll put them up for folks later. And I realized that class today, this is the first actual day of the semester. So I know not everyone's here, but we have quite a few folks here today, which is good. We've got about 35 people in the class, which is good. And I try to make this class time as practical as possible. I will count on you guys to read the material and look it over. I'm not going to read anything. I'm going to have PowerPoints, but I'm not going to camp out on them and just read PowerPoints. We're going to do a lot of practical things. We're going to do a lot of breakout room type stuff throughout the semester. And the way that I've broken the class down is basically we're going to do, like today will be an introduction, and we're going to talk about all the assignments. I'm going to talk about what development is. We're going to do a breakout room today, kind of maybe towards the middle, where I'm going to have you guys talk with each other, and then we're going to talk about expectations. I'm going to do a little bit of lecture, like maybe 10 minutes, probably towards the end. And then after that, I'm going to leave a ton of time today for questions. And during the question time, I will typically try to do that every class. During the question time, if people need to jump off and go do other things, that's cool. If you want to stay on, that's cool too. But we will have a hard stop at 11 today, and I will have hard stops pretty much every class. And I do that when I'm in person too. So um, just so you know, that's kind of what to expect. In pretty much every class, we'll have a very similar structure where we'll have a little bit of lecture, some discussion, we'll have some breakout room stuff, but it'll all be practical. And I've broken it up today as introduction. The next time we meet will be about childhood, and I'll throw some parenting things in there. The next time we meet will be about adolescence, and then our last actual Zoom class will be about adulthood, which spans a pretty fair amount of ages, and we'll jump into all that later. If you ever have a question, one of the best things to do is either put it on the chat, or, and I'm gonna see if I can do this. You can actually raise your hand. I don't know if you guys can see, but in my screen, if you throw a hand up, I'll be able to see it. And so, and then you can just lower it. Trying to move my screen around. There we go. So if you ever have questions, that's one of the best ways to do it. That way we're not talking over each other. All right. Okay. Now, so Kara has successfully thrown me all off, because if you jumped on late, Kara actually babysat me when I was little, which I obviously don't remember, but I know a lot of her family. And so she's thrown me all off. So if class goes wrong, it's probably her fault. No, I'm just kidding. It's no big deal. We're gonna jump in today and see if I can help you guys ease into our semester. Let me move some things around on my screen here. Okay. The go-to place for all the information is on Moodle. I am cleaning up a few things on Moodle, like towards the middle of the like around week 4 or 5 on. I'm trying to clean up a couple of things because I did make a couple of little bitty tweaks to our assignment dates, and so I'm trying to reflect that on Moodle. But one of the best ways to know when things are due is I'm trying to share my screen here. Hang on just one second. There we go. One of the best ways to know about when things are due and what's due is this document, important due dates. And so one of the things that happens when we do our syllabus is done like 4 or 5 months ago, or we have to turn it in. And sometimes I change dates a little bit on the syllabus. So sometimes the syllabus doesn't reflect that. I do try to change that before the class goes live, but every once in a while I miss a couple. So this is the document that you're going to use to kind of tell you, hey, this is when things are due. I'm going to go over all of these to give a little bit of information about them, but every one of these particular assignments have information about them on Moodle already that you can read about. And so down here at the bottom, is all of our Zoom class dates right here, and they'll all be on a Saturday. I just pick Saturdays. I used to try to work around every professor's schedule, but it's almost impossible to do. So I just pick a day and go with it. And so I do realize that some people might have a Saturday 1 or 2 class. And so you might miss one of these, which is fine. I will record it. These are, since it's an online class anyway, it's not necessarily like you don't have to be here, but I do think it helps. A lot of the information we talk about is super practical. And from what my students tell me through the evaluation process is that showing up to class has actually been really helpful. I don't know how many of you have the book, hopefully everyone, but the book is super long and there is a ton of information in the book. Basically, the book covers from birth to death. So we're talking about every developmental milestone cognitively, emotionally, socially, biologically or physically from birth to death. That's a lot of information. So what we try to do in our class is kind of break some of that down and talk about very specific areas of development, especially areas that we as clinicians run into, or the things that we find that maybe keep popping up. And that's true if you're in school counseling or LPC or LMFT. I do every once in a while have some folks that are not on the counseling track at all that take this class as an elective, which is great. Um, the goal is you guys read the information, do the classwork. That helps you kind of start processing. But I will try to make things practical in class to start putting some things together, and we'll have discussions about that as well. So here's all the due dates. This important due date documents on Moodle. You can check that out. The other thing, I'll stop sharing that. Put that down here. I want to talk about, I've put a reading schedule up here as well on Moodle. It's just a suggested reading schedule. You can follow that if you would like. Sometimes people read ahead. Sometimes people skip around. I mean, it's really up to you. I know that I have some folks that will read chronological, start from the beginning and read all the way to the end, which is great. You can do that. I do know some people will I know this sounds weird, but some people do jump around, and that's fine too. I basically given you, hey, if you follow this schedule, you'll basically get through the book in 10 weeks. So that's kind of how I did it. That's how I broke it down. I want to talk about the exercises here real quick. Let me get them open here. There we go. All right. I think I grabbed all the dates off this. Yeah. Okay. So, except for the spring 2018, I've had this for a while, and I have tweaked some of the instructions and some of the exercise parts, but I've been using this same assignment for a long time because I like it for a couple of reasons. One, it really does start to help you synthesize and process all the information that you're reading about. And so basically what you're going to do, and I'm actually going to share, let me share something else I think that'll be actually way more helpful. Okay, get over here. Share this. I think this will be a little more helpful for everyone. There are sections in your book that look like this: review, connect, reflect. And there's typically sometimes 2 in a chapter. There could be 3 in a chapter. And they're throughout the whole book. So every chapter has between 2 and 3 of these little sections. And this is actually taken from the book. I took this out of, I think this is out of the first chapter. I believe it looks like, yeah, first chapter. So basically there's going to be a review section, which is basically reviewing content that you just read. And there's going to be some questions about it. There's going to be a connect section, which is kind of like give your own examples about whatever you're reviewing or whatever you're reading about. And then you're going to reflect on something personal. And typically it's something that deals with something that they're talking about in a particular lifespan. So obviously, if you're looking at something in infancy, you're not going to remember infancy. So you're going to do reflection on something a little bit different. But by the time we get into, late toddlerhood into elementary years, you're going to, probably have a lot of memories of that. And so I have found that reflecting on some of those as you read through really does help people understand and synthesize information. So I have used this tool that's in the book as an assignment. So what you're going to do for the assignment, all the exercises, there's going to be 3 exercises total throughout the semester. Every exercise will have a couple of components. The first one is you'll choose 2 of these review, connect, reflect sections from the book. If you want to start with chapter 1 and choose the first 2, go for it. That's great. Some people skip ahead or some people just follow the reading plan and just choose 2 of those review, connect, reflect sections out of whatever chapter they're reading at the time. You can do it that way as well. As long as you tell me where it is, like what chapter you're reading, and you pick 2 of them. I'm not sure why, but sometimes people only pick one section. And literally all you do is you answer the questions, you answer the questions or reflect on or give answer to whatever the review, connect, and reflect questions or whatever they're asking you to do. You just follow that, and that you write that up. It's I can't imagine it being more than 2 pages. It's usually like between 1 and 2 pages. And then that's what you turn into me. So this is all just from you, and you'll turn that into me. You're going to do 2 of those, right? So by the end of the semester, you would have done 6 of these total. So 2 per assignment. And again, I do this because as we read, I find it's really helpful to do these sections. That's why they put them in there, because there's just so much information. And actually, neurologically, this is one way that we learn. One way we learn is read something, reflect on it, answer some questions about it, and kind of start to put things in our head. And the way we actually solidify learning, if we're being super neurological, and I can be nerdy a little bit, if you're reading something and at night, if you write down what you've learned, like a couple of points you can remember, and write it down before you go to sleep, and then as soon as you wake up, look at that again and maybe add to it. During the night when our brain's resting, that's when things are solidified memory wise. So it actually does help to write things down kind of as you go to sleep. The idea is very similar here. This is allowing you to write things, answer questions, do reflections on different parts of the book as you go through it. So you're going to do 2 of these sections per assignment, per exercise. You're going to write those up, answering these questions. You're going to turn that into me. Okay. The second part is you're going to put up a reflection on the forum, which I've got on Moodle. And typically I've got like a little question, like a 1-line little question that you reflect on Moodle. And you're just going to put that up. That's usually a paragraph or less. And then you're also going to make comments, read other people's posts, and make comments about what they're posting. We do this for a couple of reasons. One, it does actually start to connect us as a whole with each other. And sometimes we ask questions of what people, write up. I will regulate and watch the forum, and obviously we're being mindful of each other, and this is not Facebook or Instagram or Twitter where we can have keyboard courage and start ripping people up. I know that sounds weird for me to say in a college level class, but that has happened before, and we're not doing that. This is all about learning, and it's all about people kind of having their own opinions. And because we have people with varied backgrounds and varied experiences, we're going to have different opinions about things, and that's okay. But when you put posts up on Moodle, I'll regulate all the forums and the discussions. You're going to put your own post up, and then you're going to read and reflect or respond to other people's posts. I've found this to be super helpful, and for the most part, I think it really helps people kind of learn, because we can kind of learn from each other. Again, it's a lot of information, and this tends to help people kind of understand. Between turning in the first 2 review, connect, reflect sections to me on a Saturday, you're going to have a whole week to post something on the forum and make comments on. So I don't grade those exercises right away. I usually wait a week to let all the forum discussions happen, and then I do the grading, and I'll give you feedback. The feedback for these will be super heavy, like maybe for the first one, to kind of say, hey, this is good. Hey, try adding these things, or you didn't do this all right. Let's try it this way. And I'll give you a chance to correct those the first go around. And then after that, it's kind of on you to make sure you're doing it the right way. And so some of the comments I do will slack off a little bit the next 2 assignments, but I'll comment fairly heavily on the first exercise, just so we can kind of all be on the same page. Because I realize that every professor is different. And I know as a student myself, not super long ago, sometimes you don't know what the professor is looking for in terms of what you're writing. So you write it up and you kind of just hope it's okay. And I'll let you know if it's okay or not. I'll be fairly straightforward. I also know because of our learning styles that some of us like a lot of uh, like not negative criticism, but critique in what they've written. And some people like for that to be super positive and really encouraging. And some people don't mind kind of the negative part. We have a little bit of each of those. And I'll do a little bit of each of those for people. If you find that my critiques or my comments are not along the lines of what's helpful for you, all you have to do is tell me, hey, is there something I can do better? Typically in my mind means they're looking for a little heavier critique in this, right? So notice I said critique and not criticism. Those are two different things, which we're actually going to talk about later. Critiquing is more of a curious stance, more of a growth mindset. Criticizing is more judgmental and puts us on the defensive. We're not doing that. That's not what criticism and critiquing are, two different things. And I'm going to fall heavy on the critiquing and light, super light, if anything, on the criticizing. And so, but we're going to talk about some of that stuff later as we go through. All right. So for the exercises, you're going to do 2 review, connect, reflect exercises. They're in each chapter. There's 2 or 3 in each chapter that you read. You're going to turn that in to me. Then you're going to post a reflection on the forum and make comments on other people's posts. That's the exercise. You're going to do that 3 times throughout the semester. Okay. The first one is due on the 24th, which is in 2 weeks. So you got a couple weeks before that happens. And I made that 2 weeks because that gives you a chance to read a little bit, kind of get into the rhythm of reading the book. Or did I say that wrong? Maybe I said that wrong. Hang on a second. Maybe it's due. It might not be due then. Hang on a second. I think I told you wrong. Yeah, the 24th. That's right. So it's due on the 24th, the first one. So that means that your forum discussion is due by the 30th. Okay. Now, any question about that particular exercise?
I have a question. You said that the responses or the post on the forum is due on September 30th. So when is our replies due that same day?
Yeah, everything's due this. So the posting on the forum and your comments are due by the 30th.
Okay, perfect.
Yep.
I have a question.
Yep.
So just to get I know you broke it down really good, but with the review, connect and reflect exercises, are we supposed to write? So we're supposed to write a paper for which one that we choose. So we're supposed to choose a review or connect or reflect, and we write a paper on each one we choose, or is the paper all in one?
All in one.
All
right.
in one.
So
So
all in one. So you'll have it broken into two parts on the paper. The
okay,
first
so
part is the first review connect section, right? And the second part is the second review connect reflect section that you chose.
Okay.
Yeah. And you're
Okay.
literally just going through the review questions, the
Mhm.
connect questions, and the
Mhm.
reflect questions. And that's what you're writing up. That's it.
But it's supposed to just flow like a paper, right?
I don't care if it's short answer or paper, as
Okay.
long as you do it.
Okay. And then
Some people write down each question and then answer it at like a
okay.
short. This is really a short essay type of
Mhm.
assignment, not necessarily a paper. The reason why I say it that way is you don't have to do any kind of APA citations here, because I know where you're getting your answers. They're coming from the book,
Okay.
which I'm going to talk about APA in a second.
Okay.
My suggestion to everyone, and this is what I tell everybody, I would go ahead and make citations and practice,
Mhm.
especially if you're not used to using APA. I would
Mhm.
go ahead and practice using it, which we're going to have a whole APA assignment.
Okay.
I'm going to talk about it here in a second.
And that's what we turn into you, right?
This is what you turn into me.
And the second part as well, we turn into you.
The second part is what you're making comments and posts on the forum.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. I just wanted to get it.
No, you're good. Okay. That's why I want everybody, if you have a question, please ask.
Okay, thank you.
And Jenny, I'm going to get to your question here in a second too. So Jenny put one in the chat. I'll get to that. Any other
Thank
questions?
you.
Yeah. Any other questions about the exercises? Okay. I'm going to move on. And typically what happens is by the time I get to the end, something clicks in your brain and you're going to have a question about this, which happens every time. That's fine. No big deal. But I'm going to move forward. This is just a list of our Zoom classes. I've just put the last 3 on here because obviously we're in one now. I want to talk about the research reflection paper, which again, there's more information on Moodle about. And so I used to do presentations back long ago, and then I gave people a choice to do a presentation or a paper. But since this is online and the class has grown in size, it's really difficult to do a ton of presentations because it would basically take up a whole class. So now I just do the paper. So there's 2 different parts of this paper. One, which is about 80% of the grade, so it's the overwhelming majority of the paper, is the research part. And then the back part, about 20% of the paper, is a reflection piece. And what I've done is I've given you questions to kind of look at for the reflection. I think there's 3 or 4 questions that you just kind of answer as you reflect after you've written the research part. So let me see. Let me go ahead and pull. I'm going to go ahead and pull this one up too so you can see it. Okay. So this is this is right off of Moodle. This kind of gives more description of the research reflection paper. And you're going to see a lot of themes about reflections in my classes, all my classes, and there's lots of reasons for that. This one is 80% research, 20% reflection. When we talk about research, the research part is everything that I've listed here. I want you to choose any stage of development. You can choose childhood, you can choose adolescent, you can be specific in childhood and choose, elementary years. You can be specific in adolescence and choose junior high or high school. You can choose adulthood. I've had several folks in the past few semesters do. I've got an example here about Alzheimer's with older adults. I've had tons of people write papers about that. You're going to choose a specific stage of development. The more specific, the better, just because it helps you narrow down your research as well. You're going to give a basic overview of that stage and the basic factors cognitively, socio-emotionally, physically, or biologically, which is how the book is actually broken down per chapter as well. You're going to talk a little bit about what you learned about each one of those particular parts of the stage. Okay. And that you're going to cite things that you learned because I'm hoping you're going to learn something. Okay. And then you're going to also choose either a disorder or an issue that comes up inside of that stage. That's why I put Alzheimer's, eating disorders. I've had people write about divorce. I've had people write about different aspects of parenting. I had someone write last semester. Oh, it was really good about, what was it about? It was about education. They did a really good, I've actually got an example of it. I'm going to put on Moodle. You can be fairly creative with this, but you're going to choose that disorder or that developmental issue or something like ADHD is one that pops into mind. Oh, they wrote about ADHD in adulthood. That was one, which I've been seeing a lot of with a lot of my clients actually. And then you're going to write what treatment options are available for whatever that issue or whatever that disorder is. Okay, so that's heavy research. You're going to have to look things up about that. You can use the book for sure as a source, absolutely. But you're going to need to have 3 other sources as well. So the book can be a source, but you need 3 other sources. So a minimum of 4 sources total. Okay, that's for the research section. The back section, which is about 20 points, or 15 points, about 20%. I've got the references. I kind of throw that in there with it, but about 15 points worth on the reflection part of the assignment. And I do reflections for a couple of reasons. One, like I said before, reflecting on something helps us learn about whatever that is. The second thing is, as you go through and start talking about what you've learned, like if you learn something specific in the cognitive area of whatever you're writing about, I want you to talk about it here. Okay? Like, did your opinion change after researching this? You know, maybe you started out thinking, hey, I kind of know all there is to know about ADHD with blah, blah, blah. And then I realized, wait a minute, I didn't know it was so heavy in executive functioning. I didn't know some of those things. I didn't know it affected the prefrontal cortex of our brain so much. And so you're going to write that. Did your opinion change about it? I want to know. Or did it stay the same? That's fine too. And then the third question is what you just studied, what you just researched, is there anything that you would like to know more about? Like, does it make you more curious? That's hopefully it does. There's no way you can choose a topic, choose a developmental stage, write about a disorder or an issue, and write about every single thing that's ever been written about it in research. There's no way you can do that, because we're talking 4 to 6 pages, okay, total. There's no way you can write about every single thing. So this gives you a chance to say, hey, I read a little bit of research about this particular area as well, but I didn't have time to put it in the paper. So this is something I'd like to know more about. When I was doing my dissertation, I focused on couples going through infertility, or the experience of infertility. And I've still continued to actually interview couples. So I've interviewed, a few couples now, because I keep learning more things about the experience that they're having. And they're starting to actually be a little bit more written about it. And so as you learn more, you become more curious about it. And you can realize that there's other people that are curious about it, doing really good research in whatever that area is. You can learn so much from other people's perspectives. I've started reading a lot more international work about folks going through infertility, the experience of infertility, because it's about 1 in 5 couples worldwide, which is about 20% of couples, which is super fascinating, and also super difficult and super horrible. And I mean, there's so many things you can learn. So as you research something, hopefully you're also becoming more curious about it. Okay. So there's a research section, there's a reflection section. It's 4 to 6 pages total. You need at least 4 references. One can be the book, that's no problem, but you need at least 3 others. Okay. Any question about this particular assignment?
Are you wanting specific sources? Like, I know, like in the research methods class, we had to use like peer-reviewed articles. Is there anything specific, or?
Yeah, that's thanks for asking. That should be kind of like understood. If we're doing articles, they're always going to be from peer-reviewed journals for sure. Absolutely.
Okay, perfect.
People do use books sometimes as a source. If you have a question about, hey, is this a good book or not, just shoot me a message and I can say, hey, that one's okay, but what about this one? I try to be really careful about using books, because there's sometimes more personal to the author and not a lot of research put behind it, or not a really rigorous research. But if you look at peer-reviewed journals, that means that whatever someone's publishing has gone through a process where other people have read it, questioned it, challenged it, and then it's been published. So it's a little more scrutiny that folks go through. So I would lean more heavily towards articles that you can find online. But that's a good question. Any research you do at Amerton, you should always just have in mind that you're looking at peer-reviewed journals. Any research you do, that should just be what you do, which is not a problem, because actually our library is doing a really good job of making sure that we're connected to really good search engines and databases that have pretty much all the latest research in almost any kind of field that you can think of. So good question. You always want to use peer-reviewed journals for sure. Any other questions?
Yes, just to be sure, this is due on November 13th, correct?
Yes, that sounds right.
Okay.
That sounds right. It's like whatever is that a Sunday maybe? I don't even know. Is that a Sunday? Yeah. The Sunday before, the Sunday of the last week of class, basically. Yeah.
Okay.
Is there a word limit?
4 to 6 pages.
Thank you.
Yep. So here's my super transparency with everyone. So I've got 4 classes, and if I do research papers in all the classes, if I get more than like 6 pages, it's really difficult to grade it in a timely manner. In this particular assignment, you should be able to get everything you need in here within 4 to 6 pages. And so the actually rule of thumb in graduate school technically is you basically do a page for every reference you use. That's kind of how you can kind of go by that rule of thumb. So in this case, if you're doing 4 references, really 4 pages is probably enough. But I do know that we have some folks that are a little more wordy than others, and that's cool. So 6 pages is enough. I did have a student not super long ago that did like 20 pages, but emailed me, luckily, and said, hey, this is 20 pages. And I was like, well, can we take off like 14 pages somehow? So really, honestly, writing is more about editing than it is about writing. But I understand everyone's got other things going on. And so if you have a question about what you're writing for this paper and you want to send me a part of the paper, or here's the things I've written so far, and you want me to look at it, I'm happy to do that for sure. But it's got to be before it's due, right? It can't be on the due date, and then I'll give you feedback, and then you change it. It needs to be before that. But I'm happy to help people. The goal of this class is not to fail people. The goal of this class is to help people learn. So that's kind of what I want to try to help you do. So if you have questions, which you might have more questions about the paper as we get through the semester, like getting into late October, you'll probably have a little more question about it. That's cool. Just shoot me a message or ask me in class about it. Okay. Any other questions about this particular assignment? All right, let's talk about exams. So each exam has a study guide. The study guides basically follow the chapters in the book. And the study guide will give you a pretty good overview of what is to be expected on the exam, because the study guide is suspiciously exactly like the exam. The questions are pretty much the same questions, and you can use your study guide or the book on the exam, no problem. There's 75 multiple choice questions on the exam. There's a lot more questions on the study guide than there are on the exam. For the most part, if you finish the study guide, work through it and finish it before the exam, everyone does really well in the exam. You have 4 hours to do the exam. Okay. I'll open the exam on a Friday. So this is Jenny, I'm gonna talk about your question. Here, let me share this. Our midterm will open on the 14th, which hopefully is a Friday. Yep. Opens on the 14th. Okay. Which is a Friday. And it'll be open through 11:59 p.m. on the 19th. All right. So you'll have Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday to finish the exam. When you open the exam and start taking the exam, It's all online, right? So you'll get a link. You'll click on the link. It takes you to the exam site. You put in some information. You create a login and password, basically. The exam will start. The time will start. And if, let's say, you started on Friday and you're like, I don't want to do this on my Friday night. So you stop the exam and log off. As soon as you log off, the exam will stop. The time will stop. It'll save your location. And when you log back in, you'll pick up right where you left off. And then the time will start again. Okay. You can do that 3 or 4 times if you want. My suggestion would be, because this has happened to quite a few people lately, if you find yourself taking the exam, but you forget to log off and go do something else, that could be a problem, because then it's going to basically time out. Okay. So make sure that you log off if you walk away. And I've even had some students that, were trying to find something in the book to answer something, but that led them down a rabbit hole kind of thing and didn't log off, and then they ran out of time. So make sure you log off if you know you're going to kind of take some time away, because it will stop the time if you log off. But if you don't, it will keep going. Okay. So you'll have between October 14th to 19th for the exam. The final exam will be from November 11th through the 16th. Okay. And the final will work just like the midterm. There'll be 75 questions. There's a final exam study guide on Moodle that you can look at. The other thing that I've done on Moodle is I've also placed a couple of forum areas. One forum is for the midterm discussions. And the reason I did that is because I had students that maybe get through the study guide. Some of the questions are pretty tough, and they might want to, see what other people are saying or what other answers other students have found. So you can post that on the forum. I've even had people that got study groups together via Zoom to study for the exam, which is fine too. We used to do that in class, and this class is taught in person, I think once a year now or something like that. So sometimes people would just bring their study guides to class and kind of go through them together like that. And you'll find that the study guide's a lot harder than the actual midterm. But again, the idea behind the study guide is to help you as you read. You'll answer the questions as you read. That's kind of the best way to do it. And it should help you kind of retain some of the information. Okay. So first of all, Jenny, does that answer your question? I think there's probably a date I missed here on Moodle. I'll have to go back and fix, but does that answer your question, hopefully?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
You bet. No problem. Any questions about the exams? All right. How are we doing so far? We're good?
Yes, thank you.
All right.
Yes.
Good. Let's talk about APA. You can do this by raising hands. Is anyone here never written a paper or done any kind of work using APA style? Like this would be your first venture into APA. If it's your first time, that's why I have this assignment. It's not a hard assignment, but all I'm going to ask you to do, you can even use the book, I guess, if you want, or find a journal article. You're just going to find a source, any kind of source, and you're going to do 2 types of citations. The first one, you're going to quote, like directly quote a source, like which could be quoting a line or a phrase from the source, and you're going to cite that quotation correctly. The second part, the second line basically is you're going to paraphrase. You could paraphrase the same exact, you could paraphrase that quote in your own words and then cite that correctly. Okay. And then obviously you're going to write the reference wherever you got that source. You're going to correctly reference the source. All right. So you're going to do 3 things. You're going to directly quote something that you find. You can, like I said, you can use the book if you want. You're going to paraphrase in your own words a source. Again, you can use the same lines. and then you're going to correctly reference it. Okay, it's all on one page. It's like this long. It's not even that long. And the reason why I do this is because sometimes people's first venture into APA style is when you write your first research paper, and then you're like, oh my gosh, I've got to do APA style. I kind of want to give you a little bit of head start. If you do this wrong, which a lot of people do, it's okay. I'm going to correct it for you or show you how to do it. And that's kind of how we learn when we mess up, honestly. All right. But I just wanted to give you something. It's a super easy assignment, but I wanted to give you something to kind of work on and do. Okay. All right. Does that make sense for anyone? Anybody have a question about this one?
Will you have an example of the APA assignment on Moodle? Just to get like an idea of what it is that you're looking for.
I won't have an example,
Okay.
but on Moodle, I have placed a link to APA like citation help, which is Purdue OWL. So the University of Purdue basically keeps up with every kind of style, citation style. And APA 7 is the new APA 7 just came out earlier this year. So you can actually click on that link and go there, and you can find examples of pretty much any kind of APA style you can think of. And that's what I kind of encourage people to use that. I actually used that a ton when I was writing my dissertation.
Okay.
As well.
Thank you so much.
Thank you
for this assignment, because you're the first teacher I've had that is actually going to give me feedback. And because most of the times I've turned it in at the very end, and they'll say there might be some problems with it, but I don't know what they are.
Right. Yeah, I want you to know. So the reason why I don't give you an example at the beginning, honestly, is I want you to mess up if you mess up, because that's how we learn. That's okay. You know, don't worry about messing up. Just do what you think you know to do. And again, this isn't difficult. I'm not asking you to, I'm not asking you to write a paper. I'm asking you to do 2 citations. That's it. Okay. And this will be due fairly early on. I feel like in October. Yeah, October 1st. So this will be due well ahead of your research paper. All right.
And
Any other questions?
Both citations are from the same source, correct?
Yeah, that's what I would do. I wouldn't make more work for myself.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you so much. As the previous lady stated, thank you so much, because I have trial and error. I have messed up, and you don't know until you turn in the paper, and then points have come off, and it's like, oh, I didn't know what, so thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome. It's a different thing if you've never used it, because APA feels like a different language, but all the work you do at Amberton will be in APA style. Any kind of research that you do will always be in APA style. So hopefully it's helpful for you. And that link I gave you is on Moodle. You can go there and look, and there's tons of examples. I mean, you can get APA style 7, the actual book, the paperback book too, and it's got everything you need on there as well. All right. Any other questions about this assignment? Awesome. Now, let's do something fun. Here's what we're going to do. I am going to put you guys into groups. Looks like we'll have almost an even number. I want to put you guys into groups, and this will be super easy. I want you to do a couple of things. Obviously, introduce yourself, right? And when you introduce yourself, just say, hey, I'm Jenny. I'm getting my LPC or my LMFT, or I'm taking this as an elective, whatever. Talk about where you're from. That's great. But I also want you to say, and it would be helpful if someone kind of captures all of this as well, captures the expectations. I want to know what your expectations of this class are. And expectations is the big word It can mean a lot of different things. It could be, I'm taking this class because I have to. My expectation is to learn XYZ thing. That's cool. That's an expectation. I'm expecting to learn why I've had this a lot. I'm expecting to learn why my kids or family or blah, blah, blah have done XYZ, or, whatever your expectation is, I'd like to know what it is. And then we're going to have a little discussion about that as you finish. I'm going to give you a little extra time to do this so that everyone has a chance. So if someone will capture the expectations for me, that'd be awesome. Because when we come back together, I'm going to try to gather those together just for myself so I can make sure that we're doing the things that we need to do to help. Okay. So I'm going to put you guys into groups, into breakout rooms. We're going to do. We got it. We got an even number. Awesome.
Professor,
Yes.
Professor, I have an appointment at 10, so
Yeah.
I'm about to log off. So
Yeah.
you don't have to put me in one. I'm gonna try and get back on before 11 now.
Yeah, no problem. No problem.
Okay, sorry about that.
Yeah, it's no problem. All right, should pop up on your screen. Just click that and you'll jump into your group.
Stan, can you hear me?
Yes,
Or were you going to ask me if I wanted to do the expectations or
Yeah,
you? You,
that was
you,
my
you-
exact. that
I'm
was my
sorry, I
exact-
cut you off. You do it.
go.
That'd be great.
Oh, okay,
If you don't mind.
sure.
Okay, thanks.
All right, now, apparently, we're having a lot of reunions in this class. So I think that's very fascinating. And like, I guess it was Rachel and Chloe and Lexi. There were some reunions going on in y'all's class. It sounds like, right?
Yes. Yeah. Well, we just have connections.
Yeah,
Same
connections.
support.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. Okay, here's what we're going to do. I want to know expectations because I'm going to try to capture them. And then I'm going to spend about, I don't know, 10 minutes going over a couple of things lecture wise. And then we're going to talk about some of those things. And then I'm going to leave, like I said at the beginning, I'm going to leave a ton of time for any questions you have. And if you need to jump off at that point, you can, that's no problem. But I'd love to know what everyone's expectations are. And like I said, expectations is kind of a big thing. But what are expectations? And I don't care who starts, just anybody.
I'll start. I'll start. My group was with Ryan and Raquel. Ryan expectation is to learn the difference between nature and nurture because he has adopted children and he is questioning if the children behavior is nature or nurture. Raquel expectation, she is a middle school teacher and she is wanting to know if her expectation is to learn if what they're teaching the children is cognitively appropriate for the children in middle school.
Oh man, y'all got big expectations. Y'all coming in here strong. We're coming in strong today. I like it.
And I'm Raina. My expectation is to learn substance abuse as adolescents. Is it due to trauma in childhood or peer pressure?
Yes, it is.
Well, yeah.
Okay, good. Awesome.
Okay.
All right. Who's next?
Real quickly, I'll go next if it's okay.
Yeah.
It was just two of us, myself and Kara. Is it Kara or Kara? I'm sorry.
It's Kara.
Kara, yeah. And maybe both of us may want to, or Kara, you want to chime in, but real quickly, Kara is in somewhat of a rural part, a rural area. So
not somewhat, it's very rural.
With her desire to go into LPC, she's going to need to probably do more general counseling as opposed to more specialized as it relates to age-wise. So I think that, and Kara, if I hope I don't mess this up, I think she just wants to get a broader view of the different stages in life because she may be dealing with all ages.
Yeah.
And as for myself, I've just been, I'm a hospice chaplain. And so that's part of my background. So I think this class is going to help me to, right now, most of my patients are aging patients or patients who, are in the latter part of life. But oftentimes when counseling with patients, I see that they always reflect back to their childhood and how they were shaped or what their environment was or where they came from. So I'm hoping that from this class, I'll be able to look at the different spans of development and see how it affects, say, if it's a elderly person, how their childhood may have affected how they are now.
Gotcha. Okay.
Kara, I hope I did you justice.
Perfect. Good going, Stan.
So part of that is, I think this was Ryan's question too. The nature nurture question is a big question, right? So, and we're going to talk about that. And it starts in childhood.
Yeah.
Right. And we're actually going to talk a little bit about some of that today. So that's good. Okay, good. Who's next?
Maybe I
Okay.
can. Oh, who is that? Go
Rachel,
ahead.
do you want to go, Alan?
Okay, thank you, Rachel. I think I'll represent Jenny Tolleson and Sabrina Kimbrell. And my name is Eileen Fawcett, and we enjoyed each other's company and had a nice time together. Jenny is working on the LPC program, and she emphasized that she was very excited for this class because she, I think like me, is an older student, and she has children and grandchildren, and she is seeking to understand where her clients are in the different stage of development, as well as looking at her own family. And we discussed, our feelings about that. I would consider myself in Erik Erikson's 8th stage of integrity versus despair, and looking back at other stages and trying, for me, I'm in the MS Family Studies graduate program, but I'm trying to, I love to keep learning, and it's been very important to me to do so. And as I started out in nursing, and I worked in nursing for many years, but in this stage of my life, I want to learn more about what I think is the most important thing in life, and that is human development and what makes us who we are and why we do the things we do. And that is professionally as well as personally with my own family. And so that's my expectation. And Sabrina is a new grad and has studied nutrition, and she's especially interested in the infancy stage, the bonding and attachment, which is also a big one for me. And she's interested in particularly the area of nutrition and how parents can influence their children to utilize those better habits of health. Did I represent you both okay?
Yes.
Great job.
Is that okay? Anyway, those are our thoughts and expectations, and we are all excited for the class.
Good. All right. We got big expectations. Let's keep going.
Okay, so I was in the break room with Lexi and Chloe, and we kind of had the same expectations for the class. Chloe had her undergrad was in early childhood development, and so she's just looking to build on that. And then Lexi was looking kind of how to utilize the info. I mean, I think one of the biggest things we were, and including me, like just looking at the whole bigger picture of the different things we're learning and learning how to integrate those and the meaning, and just, expounding on those things so we can, just get more effective in working with our clients.
Good. Okay. Good. Did we miss anybody?
Can go, Dr. Bedard.
Yeah.
I am our group, and Beverly was in our group, but she had to leave for her appointment, but she was assigned to our group. And ours were Danielle, Amanda, and myself, Audra. Danielle is currently a 2nd grade teacher in Red Oak ISD or Waxahachie area. She has a 1-year-old also, and so she is going for her master's in school counseling. And her expectation is she wants to go more in depth for the development of her, starting from elementary through high school students, to be able to learn, to be able to pass that on to them. And of course, Danielle, if I missed anything, please feel free to add. I was the note taker, and I'm not sure if I got it all.
No, you did a great job. Thank you.
And then Amanda, she is going the master's route for her LPC. And this is her 2nd career. She's currently working full-time, and she is in north of Dallas, Flower Mound, Louisville area. And she travels a lot. She's trying to narrow down her areas of specialty or interest because she has so many different interests. So she's hoping this class will help her do that. And again, Amanda, if I missed anything, please feel free to add. Okay. Probably
Awesome.
not. Okay, and then I'm kind of Amanda's path. I'm in my 3rd session as an LPC, also my 2nd career. And I have many interests as well. I initially thought I wouldn't be so interested in childhood development and disorders and so forth, but as I've taken more classes, I am. And I think that was just a fear that maybe I couldn't handle some, really sensitive childhood issues. So it was more kind of like protect myself. But my interests initially were in adult ADHD and also premenopause and menopausal women, and how depression sometimes comes into play for them.
Okay.
Those are my main areas.
Gotcha.
Anxiety as well. I think I need to narrow down my areas also,
Okay.
because
Yeah.
I'm not sure where I will end up.
Okay. Good. Okay. Anyone else or anyone want to add anything?
So our group was, I'm hoping I'm getting everyone's names right. So it was Sarah, Megan, and Leanne, and then me. So there were 4 different people in our group. So a significant portion of our conversation was based around the fact that Sarah has been at Amberton for a couple years, and there were a lot of new students. Like this is my first ever class at Amberton. I think it was also Leanne's and maybe Megan's first class at Amberton. So we had a lot of questions for her about that. But yeah, I think a lot of our expectations just kind of come from the way that Megan put it, was like helping people move through issues and trying to figure out at different parts of the lifespan development, what are the common issues and then what are the different approaches to solving them.
Gotcha.
I think in our group, we're coming at it from a couple different perspectives. I want to do a school counseling focus. I'm currently a high school teacher right now, but we also have, I believe Leanne said that she was wanting to become an LPC. So a couple different backgrounds represented, but that was just kind of a common hope that we had. And also, I won't say who, but someone in our group said that they expect everyone to get all A's. So just wanted to make sure you knew that.
I think that was Neil, fairly certain.
I don't know. A gentleman never tells his secrets.
All right. Well, I think, first of all, did we miss anybody? I think that's everybody. I'm just kind of looking around. I think so. Okay. So one big part of this class, to me, is on display right now. And that is, we have varied backgrounds, we have varied experiences, and then varied cultural experiences, varied childhoods. We have varied family histories. We have all kinds of, variants here. And that's, to me, good. That's a good thing. It makes our class richer, right? So we're going to talk about, like, for example, if we talk about parenting, if I say the word parenting, every one of you is going to have a very specific thought about it, right? And it's most typically based on what? Your experience, either as a parent or being parented, right? The odds are strong that everyone in here is going to have a little bit different experience. But some of you might have very same experiences. You might have, it could be different, could be the same. But when you say parenting, we're going to have a very, we get some pretty specific ideas. We could say the same thing about lots of topics, right? Like if I say high school, well, Neil's going to have a very specific, kind of thought about high school, being a high school teacher. But some of us didn't like high school at all, and we would rather not think about high school. Or some of us loved high school. It was awesome. We'd go back there, right? So when we say things like that, it has something to do with how we have developed, what the experiences that we've had, what we've learned or not learned. So all of the expectations, that any expectation you have, to me, is super valid. Also, we're going to, I think, probably address pretty much all of them in some way or another. I can tell you that the book is going to do a really good job of addressing pretty much everything you guys are talking about. The biggest problem with the book is that there's so much to the book, right? This is like a 3-semester class we're going to cram into 10 weeks. We could have a class on childhood, we could have a class on adolescence, we could have a class on adulthood. We could do that pretty easily. But we got 10 weeks to cram everything in, and we're going to do the best we can. All right. So I'm gonna jump into a couple of things just by way of like, so we can all start speaking the same language. Let me get the right thing up. Here we go. It hides everybody from me when I share my screen, and I don't like that. I'm gonna do a couple of definitions. We're gonna keep things pretty light today. Basically, what we're gonna attempt to do is look at the lifespan and how we develop, and we're gonna look at physical, psychological, cognitive, cultural, spiritual aspects of development. No big deal. That's gonna be super easy. Well, it's gonna be a huge deal, and it's not gonna be easy. It's gonna be really, really difficult because every single span of life has multiple developmental stages happening at the same time, right? So let's look at early childhood. Early childhood has a child, and then what else? Caregivers and extended family, and we got multiple developmental stages happening together at the same time, right? So that's something we'll be kind of keep in mind. Also, we know that culturally, there's other cultural, and now culture is a big word. We're talking about gender, ethnicity, could be age, could be part of the country or part of the world. I mean, culture is a huge kind of catch-all term, so to speak. We're going to think about it culturally. We're going to think about a lot of things culturally. Spirituality could be part of culture. We're going to talk about that. But basically, we're going to look at next time early childhood and middle childhood. We're going to kind of skip over conception and birth. I'm going to just kind of guess that everyone knows where babies come from and how we get them and where I'm going to kind of skip through some of that. We're going to jump into early and middle childhood. I'm going to talk about late childhood too into adolescence, but we're going to talk about childhood as a whole. And then our third class, we're going to jump into adolescence, and adolescence is a little stretched out over time, the ages, right? So around 13 to even into 25, we could be talking about adolescence, and there's different categories or different stages of adolescence that we're going to talk about. We're going to camp out mostly junior high and high school in our class. We'll kind of get into some like 19, 20, 21 age group stuff in adolescence, but we're going to save that for young adulthood, which is also going to be part of adulthood as a whole. So when we talk about adulthood, we're going to jump into basically the mid-20s all the way through. We're going to talk about all of those things together, right? So let me give you a couple of things about what that's going to look like, and I'm going to do that by telling you a little bit about me. I have my first job was working as a youth pastor. It's been a little while ago. And so as I was working as a youth pastor, I figured out that I had more and more people coming to me with issues, and I didn't know how to help them. So I went back to school and got my marriage and family therapy degree, thinking that I would probably just go back and get back in the church world, and I couldn't get a job. Then I was like, well, why don't I just get a PhD, because I might want to teach. So that's what I did. So I started doing clinical work, and now I've been doing clinical work. I look up, it's 13 years has gone by. So I've worked with families. I've worked with marriages. I mainly only work with marriages now, specifically. I do a lot of employee assistance work as well. I've worked with men and women coming out of prison. I worked with addiction. I've worked a lot with grief and loss. I've not done very much with children, except for when I was getting my hours, because I basically took anyone that came to me to get my hours. And that, so for the past probably 25 years, I've done most of my work in the areas of adolescence, family, couples, and in all kinds of cultures, any kind of cultural area you can think of, I've worked in it probably. And that doesn't mean I'm like an expert of everything. That means the more I do, the more I realize I don't know enough. Like I just don't know enough. There's so many things that we don't know. And then all of a sudden COVID happens. And COVID is basically a long trauma. It's this long drawn out trauma. And regardless of your viewpoint of COVID and whatever happens at COVID and what we did or didn't do, to be honest with you, I don't really care about some of that stuff because I'm working with people that have gone through really hellish things during COVID. And it's been very difficult for a lot of people for lots of reasons. And so I find that I've used more information from lifespan development material than ever before. And so I literally, when I'm working with people, I'm thinking about like the stage of life that they're in. And when we, like, for example, if we talk about childhood, because I talk about childhood with all my clients, I don't camp out back there, and I'm not a psychoanalyzer. I don't follow Freud. I don't do that, but I do try to look at some areas of childhood that people sometimes get stuck in. It doesn't excuse us. It just explains things, right? We go through childhood experiences, and that's the first time we learn things. I'm not talking about just walking and talking and crawling, and I'm talking about like, how do we learn about marriage? How do we learn about love? How do we learn about communicating? How do we learn about friendships? How do we learn about like being social? We learn in childhood. We don't go from being born to we're middle adulthood. That's not how it works. We learn in childhood. So if we have traumatic things that happen to us in childhood, then that's going to affect us, right? And we don't have to have super traumas to be affected. That it doesn't have to be super traumas, right? The reason why I'm bringing up COVID is because the world has gone through a trauma, not just a few people. Okay. And it's caused a lot of big issues to happen for people. Some of the issues are big, huge, huge, huge. Some of them are not so big. And some people have kind of been able to kind of work through it. But I bring this up because we have a class now that focuses on trauma and how to work inside of trauma. And I would encourage everyone to think about taking that class, because I have not worked with any client that hasn't gone through trauma. I've not 100% of my clients have gone through some kind of trauma. And like I said, it doesn't have to be big. It could be small, but to them, it's probably not small. But comparatively, we can look at it kind of on a continuum. So when we think about how we look at working with clients, it can be very helpful to look at things developmentally. Because if things happen to us at anywhere along those stages of development, and we don't accomplish what we need to accomplish in that stage, guess what? We get stuck in that stage. We don't move to the next one. For example, if we dealt with addiction, we know from research that addiction tends to stall us out in a stage that we're in, especially emotionally. So when we come out of addiction and we went into addiction at 20 and we come out at 40, emotionally, we're still 20. Now we can catch up, but we're developmentally delayed in a lot of ways. Okay. So if we know those things, we can actually help people move through and kind of learn things and be better. But we got to know how things work developmentally. That's very important. What I like about this is one of the things that I like about this class. We can learn insight about ourselves. There probably will be very little that we'll talk about that you won't think at least about some part of your life, just because of the content that we're talking about, which is good. I think it's going to make us better counselors. I'm one of the groups I know, I can't remember, maybe it was Leanne was talking, or someone was talking about this. This should make us better counselors, because we should learn how to work with people in different developmental stages. And FYI, if you're working with a couple, you're working with people that are also in their own developmental stage as a couple, because as we get married, we go through development. As we have kids, we go through development. As our kids graduate, we go through development. I mean, we're continually developing. So we can think about development as like this pattern of change that starts at conception and continues the whole way through our lifespan. We're never not developing. We're always developing. Now, it might not feel like it, but we're never not developing. It's happening from the time we're conceived and born all the way through until the time of our death. There's continual development. Okay. So having a lifespan perspective, and the book's going to talk about this really, really well, especially at the beginning of the book. We're talking about growth, maintenance, regulation. We're going to talk about emotional regulation next week, next class specifically, because that's really important. We're going to talk about it in children and adults. That's very important. And the book does a good job of laying out development from the standpoint of biology, socio-cultural, individual factors, emotions, cognitions, how they work. And I'll probably give like a little bit of information on cognitions and emotions and behaviors and kind of how they work together. Basically, this class hits on several different aspects of other classes that you'll go into more in depth of as you go through other classes. But we're going to hit a few of those things. Development is always contextual. In other words, it's specific to the person, right? That's going through it, and there's a specific context that we all live in. It's lifelong. It's multidimensional. It's multidirectional. It's plastic. In other words, it's kind of like an amoeba moving around all the time. It's not like we don't just develop in a linear pattern. Sometimes we go backwards. Sometimes we get stalled. And it's multidisciplinary. And we're going to talk about a lot of these as we go through. I'm going to slow down here for a second. This will be the last thing. And these slides are up on Moodle too, by the way. You can check them out. There's a biological process. So that's our nature part. That's all. If you think about genetics, DNA, things that we're born with. There's a cognitive process. So that's changes in thought, intelligence, language. That's our brain development. We know that the brain is super elastic, even into our 80s. We know that's true. There's psychological processes that are going on. That's part of the cognitions. So we're talking about how you relate to other people, how your emotions impact you or don't impact you, areas of your personality. Those are all part of our biological, cognitive, and social emotional process. I think this is in the book. So this breaks down basically the different areas of development: prenatal, infancy, early childhood, middle, and late childhood. We're going to talk about these two specifically next time. Adolescence, the class after, and then adulthood will be our last class. So you can break things down kind of like this. One thing that I would say with a lot of you that are trying to like decide a specialty or kind of a direction to go, or you're not sure who you want to work with or how, that's okay. That's part of the beauty of going through classes, is trying to figure those things out. My suggestion would be, if something you're curious about, use that for your paper topic. Like research something, like figure it out. Like if you want to look at, I think Audra, you were talking about pre and post menopause and how it affects depression in women. That would be a great topic. I mean, you could, there's tons of information about things like that. I think I mentioned adult ADHD. I just read an article. I haven't read the whole thing yet. Last week or the week before, there's tons of research going on right now about adults being diagnosed with ADHD for the first time, not in adolescence. And that's super fascinating to me. That would be a huge area. And there's starting to be more information written about that. Anything that you're curious about as you're reading can be a topic that you choose to do your research on. It usually works better with, in my experience, it's we either research things that we're super passionate about or something we don't know anything about. It's one or the other, typically. Tends to help us, whatever helped us the most. Like Ryan, if you're looking at adoption and nature and nurture, I mean, there is so much information about attachment, let's say with adoption. I mean, that you could write a book about that just based on the research that's out there. So there's tons of areas that you guys can jump into just based on the things you guys are saying today. I think that could be, there's even starting to be research coming out now about the mental health, COVID, mental health, and the effects of not just kids, but people. There's starting to be research about that coming out now, and that'll trickle out in the next 10 years. There'll be a lot written about that, but there's lots of great topics out there that you guys can look at. But we want to try to use that kind of lifespan development mindset, cognitively, socio-emotionally, physically, or biologically. That's kind of what we're going to try to focus on. Okay. I have teenagers. I have a 15 and 14-year-olds. So I don't work with teenagers anymore because I have 2 in my house, and that's enough for me right now. But I've worked with adolescents. I've worked with 3 generations of adolescents, and they're all different, but they're all the same. Our developmental process has not changed. Our environment has changed. Our context that we live in has changed. Our development hasn't really changed that much, I don't think. But cultural things have changed. Our society has changed. I mean, the things around us has changed, but our development hasn't changed that much. So having said all of that, I think this will be this is one of my favorite classes. I think you'll get a lot out of it. I think you'll walk away not knowing everything. I mean, hopefully you walk away not knowing everything, but being more curious. That's really super helpful. There's no way that we'll be able to answer every question and dive into every topic. But I'll do my best to make things super practical. And I'll talk a lot about like clinical, like we start thinking about things clinically when we work with people, whether you're a school counselor, or LPC, LMFT, LCDC. I know we're using a lot of terms not everyone might be super familiar with, but because we like talking code, seems like sometimes. But basically, as we work with people and try to help them either make changes or help them in their development or help them to work through issues that they're having, having a development mindset really does help a lot, I think. I will say this one thing that I have noticed over the past, this is even before COVID, probably the past 5 or 6 years, is the amount of students coming out of high school that don't really know what they want to do, so they don't go to college, or they start college and stop like halfway through, and then they just feel totally lost. And that's starting to be a thing. It's not talked about a lot. I haven't even seen a lot written about it, but that's an actual area that's out there right now. And that's something that I've seen. I work in 3 states, and I've seen it in every state I've worked in. So that's actually something that's happening more and more too. So there's always things that are happening that if you can find a niche, it's not really, you find niches to help people, but sometimes like things like that, to me is like it's very fascinating because developmentally they're not really adults, but they're seen as adults, and they don't know what they want to do, so they feel overwhelmed, and then they feel guilty, and then they feel this tremendous amount of shame, and shame typically makes us do weird things and makes us think weird things and bad things, and so we're going to talk about a lot of these things as we go through our class. So having said all of that, is there any questions about anything, either course material or anything? This is kind of like, I wanted to leave plenty of time for you guys to ask questions about anything you want. And if anyone needs to jump off, please don't hesitate. That's fine too. So any questions about anything?
Just real quickly, I'm sorry, is
No, you go
there a
ahead.
reading schedule, or I haven't looked at the syllabus. I mean, is there any chapters like we should be focusing on at a particular time or anything of that sort?
Yes,
And
Dan,
it may
I
have been
put
covered already.
yeah, I put a like a document on Moodle that's a suggested reading schedule. You can use that if you'd like.
Okay.
A lot of people also just use the study guide as a kind of as their guide through reading. You can do it either way. I honestly, I try to hit every learning style. So some people like to go start with chapter 1, go all the way through and read a couple every week. And some people like the study guide, and it kind of, the study guide skips around somewhat. So some people like that. So really it's kind of depends on what you like.
Okay, great. Thanks a lot.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions?
Our next, excuse me, our next class then is 2 weeks from today, right? At the same time, Zoom class, 9?
Yeah, everything's 9 to 11.
Every other Saturday?
Our next class is the 24th.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Is it every other Saturday? If I did that, I didn't do it on purpose.
Oh.
It is every other Saturday.
Well, not necessarily, because our next one after that's on the 22nd of October. So.
Oh, well, yeah.
That's like 3 weeks.
I think that's because of the test, the midterm.
Yeah. Who knows how I come up with the schedule I come up with? Who knows?
Are you looking at that somewhere? It may be on the syllabus.
It's on the.
It's on the important due dates.
Oh, okay. Great. Thank you.
I was looking at my calendar on the wall. I got this huge gargantuan calendar on my wall, so I look at it every once in a while. So it looks like I'm looking around the corner for something, but I'm just looking at my calendar.
So can I ask you a question about the research paper?
Sure.
So when you say 4 to 6 pages, you mean that's the meat of the paper?
That's the whole paper.
The whole paper. So is that's the cover sheet?
That's written. So that would be written. Like,
so, okay.
Yeah, whatever. I wouldn't count the title page.
Okay.
That's whatever you're writing, 4 to 6 pages of writing.
Okay. And that's, yes. So that was my question. If that's title page and also the reference page.
Right, those are just 2 page. I mean, that should be, those would be the easiest part of the whole thing.
Thank you.
But Jenny, you sound like me. I want to know how much. I'm a cut to the chase person. I want to know, like, okay, how many pages I got to write, and that's when I get to 4, I'm like, I'm done. But some people like 6, and that's fine too. That's okay.
PowerPoint that you've been going through today that has like kind of a breakdown of the information, is that, I've kind of been clicking through some of the things, is that like your own personal one just to kind of keep you on track, or is that something that you've shared with us?
I think I've put 2 different ones. One's an intro that had some of the stuff I shared at the beginning. And then this last one I was using is actually from the chapter 1. I just put that up.
Oh, okay,
I thought I had put all of the PowerPoints on Moodle, and I'll do that today. I'll put a folder on Moodle that will have every PowerPoint for every chapter, because some people like that as they read to use it. I'll do that too.
Okay, and then whenever, so like say that we are on a Zoom, but then we want to go back and reference something that you said or whatever, or is there going to be a specific folder where we can find those, or is it going to be posted in the week of that it took place in?
Yeah, like today I'll post this class, the recording, on week 1. I'll put it up.
Okay, thank you.
So if you ever need to go to sleep at night, you can just put this on. It'll put you right to sleep. This will be it. Any other questions?
Okay, I know that you answered the question briefly.
I'm not answering any more questions. I'm not answering it again.
I just want to make sure. Okay, because I have the book. This
awesome.
This is what we're turning in to you, right?
2 of those.
2 of these.
Yep. You got it. Are we on the, what's the edition of the book? Is it 14th or 18th or
No,
something?
the 18th edition.
18th. Okay.
Mhm.
Okay.
So just to clarify, when you say 2 of those, like say I did chapter 1 and 2, I'm picking that little box from chapter 1 and then I'm doing one on chapter 2.
That's great. Awesome.
Okay.
Okay, so do one on chapter 1 and on chapter 2, or chapter 1 and chapter 3.
Or you can do, or you can do them both from chapter 1. Or both from chapter 2. Or both, or let me really confuse you. You can do one from chapter 1 and one from chapter 16. We can do that.
Oh, okay.
Nobody's going to do that, but you know.
I'm gonna get it together.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I have one question just about back to the research paper. Because I know that some of us are probably going to have a hard time kind of narrowing down our focus. Is there a place where we can kind of go to you and say, this is kind of what my thesis statement is, and you can give us some feedback on where we're headed?
Yeah, you can always shoot me a message and I'll tell you.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah. And when we have classes, I'm going to typically have time like this too, if you ever want to bring things like that up in class.
Okay.
Well, you can do it that way as well. Yeah.
Sounds good.
I would say the quicker you can kind of start narrowing down and grab an idea of what you want to do, the better. Because it might change maybe over, you know, as you go through. But I mean, some of the things you guys brought up in terms of your expectations sound like good potential areas of focus to me.
Yeah, I'm kind of headed in that direction, kind of to see how doing activities or presenting information or teaching kids in a way that's not cognitively appropriate affects their learning. Like, is it actually pushing them to learn more, or is going outside of that cognitive developmental level actually having a negative effect on their learning?
Right. And so what's important about that to you?
I think that like making sure that we stay in the realm of what kids can handle.
How would we know that? Like, how would we know if we were doing that?
Well, I think when you're looking at some of the activities that we're doing in some of the high schools and middle schools, the type of reflection that we're asking kids to do and the type of analytical work that we're asking kids to do sometimes isn't at their cognitive level. And so I guess my question would be, does that actually push them to learn?
Okay. So when you're talking about learning, what kind of learning are we talking about, right? That would be something I would think about.
Right. So we're talking about just academic.
Yeah. Yeah, good. That, I would say that's a good start,
Okay.
but still pretty broad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But that's good. I mean, to me, you're kind of talking about, okay, first of all, classroom instruction, but also like testing, which is a whole other kind of thing. Right. And then we throw in like what's going on for them developmentally, as they go through, between ages 14 to 18, there's multiple areas that you're potentially could hit.
Right.
Like what is cognitively appropriate for a 14-year-old? Is that cognitively appropriate for an 18-year-old? And what about if it's male or female, or what about if it's, I mean, there's lots of things there to me.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Good. Any other questions? Okay. Now you can go and do something else. I'm going to go mow my yard because it's only 81 degrees. It's awesome. And Eileen, I've had 3 inches of rain at my house since like June.
We haven't had much at all, so it was just wonderful, but I don't even think we got an inch. It's just not
Yeah,
enough. We need
I
so
know.
much.
I feel like we all need rain,
Yes.
but some places don't need rain right now,
Yeah.
for sure. All right.
So
Hey,
really,
it's good to see everybody. And I'll put the recording up this afternoon. And I'm going to put the PowerPoints up there too, so you can check those out. And Kara, thanks for taking me back the blast from the past.
Thanks, Dr. Bedard. Look forward to this semester.
All right. We'll talk to you guys next time.
Thank you.
Thank
thank
you.
you very much. Enjoyed it.